All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Harry Klein. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Appsumbler. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be, I think, a very informative 60 minutes focused on why and somehow software companies are using education to turn users into advocates. Appsumbler's CEO and founder, Nate Awney, will look at some of the market forces behind this movement. And chefs Kimball Johnson and April Nash will share their insights into why Chef is so dedicated to engaging software practitioners with education. Briefly, some housekeeping, some more formal introductions, and then we'll dive in. Your audio is muted, so if you have any questions, please, as you can see, you'll see a Q&A icon on your interface. Click that, type in your question, and we'll do our best to get those answered. We've got three really compelling speakers today. Kimball Johnson is a senior developer advocate at Chef. He spends his days creating the best training content for enabling the coded enterprise. 10 plus years in DevOps, 20 plus in software development. He's continually looking for ways to improve the DevOps culture, in constant communication with DevOps pros, receiving feedback from code contributors to develop more digestible content for the community and for customers. April Nash is the Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Chef, where she's been driving operational efficiency since 2017. She manages their MarTech infrastructure, data, and analytics, always with a keen eye for detail and an appetite to solve some complex problems. And you'll see later that she's certainly been doing that. And finally, Nate Awney will be our principal speaker and MC, if you will. Nate is the CEO and founder at Appsumbler, and he drives our mission to empower trainers and educators to deliver engaging hands-on learning experiences so that they can focus on what truly matters, their learners. So, with that said, a brief word about Appsumbler. We deliver our customers an immersive hands-on training experience. It helps them engage potential customers by teaching them about their products. It helps our customers reduce their onboarding costs, not only with their new customers, but with employees, by using online self-paced courses paired with our tailored virtual software labs. And it really helps our customers get their employees and partners up to speed to really easily and quickly ensure that those who represent their companies know their product best. And these are just a few of the organizations we're really proud to work with, Chef being among them, certainly. A brief word about Chef. Chef is a continuous automation software leader in continuous automation software, innovator in application automation, and one of the founders of the DevSecOps movement. They work with about half of the Fortune 500 companies, and you'll learn a lot more today about their learn.chef.io website, where they're doing all their training. To start, then I'll get out of the way. I want to do a quick poll. It's got a couple of questions, and I'll launch that right now. If you could just take a minute and launch that. Take a minute and review it, give some answers. So what is your primary role as it relates to education or training within your organization? And if you've got an answer of other, feel free to drop it into the chat or the Q&A. We've got 3 responses. Let me give it another 10 seconds. All right, that didn't attract a lot of feedback, but here you go. Here are the results. So we've got an instructional designer, a couple of subject matter experts, training and enablement, and we've got an other. Let me see if I see the other answer anywhere. I'll look for that and communicate it. All right. Next question here. Which of the following best describes your company? Great. So we've got some answers there too. Let's see here. B2B technology company, complex software product, B2B tech company with both hardware and software, other. All right, thank you. Let's continue. I'm gonna turn things over now to Nate Awney to begin our discussion about why software companies are using education to turn users into advocates. Nate.
All right, thanks, Harry. It's great to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. So why do software companies use education to turn users into advocates? It's an interesting question that we're going to dig into on the call today. I want our friends from Chef to share their thoughts. But first, I would like to share some broader macro trends and what we're seeing in the market to answer this question about why. Like, why is this important? So there are some undeniable facts to consider. So it's hard for most people to understand, but we are entering an era where the world is going to change very rapidly. And this is largely driven by technological innovations. And so much of this innovation is coming in the form of advancements in software. To put this in real number terms, here's a daily number of launches of Amazon Web Services. And you can notice how the pace of growth just keeps accelerating. And what this means is that software is evolving at a pace that we've never seen before. Companies that don't embrace digital transformation will be disrupted. And one need not look far to see examples of this. Virtually every industry is being disrupted by technological innovation. And here are just a few notable examples in the entertainment, hospitality, transportation industries. So how do companies avoid becoming the next blockbuster? Well, it's not enough to just adopt new technologies, but to truly win, you need to innovate with these new technologies. Now, this is easier said than done because in order to truly innovate, you need technical talent. And that leads to another problem because the technology is moving so fast that there simply aren't enough people with these technology skills. And with the rise of AI and now COVID, many people are losing their jobs and need to be retrained with new skills. So this means that skill shortages are at an all-time high, with 67% of companies struggling to find the right talent. And just notably, the top 3 scarce skills are big data, analytics, cybersecurity, and AI. And the people who already have these skills are in demand. They're constantly being bombarded with job offers from tech giants, like Google, Facebook, Microsoft. So what's a company to do? Well, if you can't hire these people, you need to train and educate the people you've already got. And this is why the best companies have prioritized education, not only to attract new hires, but to retain existing talent. So what does this all have to do with Chef and the topic for today? Well, just as there's a war for hiring tech talent, there's a war for developer mindshare. And if you're a B2B software company, it's the same audience whose attention you're vying for. So if you're trying to get technical people to adopt and ultimately buy your software, you first have to get their attention, then you need to earn their trust. But why should you care about what developers think anyways? Well, according to Matt Assay, a longtime advocate of open source software and now an executive at Amazon Web Services, 95% of developers report they're involved in purchasing decisions, and 58% indicate they have budget authority, not just budget influence. But reaching this audience is not easy because developers are typically immune to traditional forms of marketing. So how are developer-centric companies doing it? So Twilio is one of the most developer-centric companies on the planet. And Sarah Varney, the the Twilio CMO, had some simple advice. She says, help, don't sell. What Chef has figured out, as have many of our other customers like Redis Labs, Dremio, iTential, and InterSystems, is that the best way to earn trust with this audience and to turn them into advocates is to teach them something, right? Developers love to learn new skills. They don't like to be bombarded with marketing and sold to. But how do companies do that now under COVID when you can't have in-person conferences and workshops? Well, Chef Software is one of those innovative companies who've embraced online learning using their learn.chef.io site to build a community of 150,000 learners, many of whom have gone on to become Chef customers. And to tell you how they did it, I'm thrilled to have as guests today, Kimball Johnson and April Nash. Kimball, what is Learn Chef, and why did Chef Software invest in an online education program?
So if you go to the next slide, please, Harry. One of the things to talk about Learn Chef is like, and I wrote this was a mission statement I wrote as I was working towards the replatforming that we're going to talk a little bit about. But we are enabling our learners to have success in Chef Software's products so that they can achieve business value. And importantly, we want a very low barrier to entry for these, this online experience. We want them to be able to learn very easily without having to spend a lot of time setting up infrastructure and what have you. They won't be able to do it. And then we want them to also be able to validate their skills as well. And so we've had the Learn Chef platform for over 3 years now, and recently we've moved over to using the Appsumbler platform, and we did that because we had a number of issues and consistencies. But essentially, it's a free online platform to enable our developers to be able to learn the software in a hands-on manner, and that's what's really important.
Thank you, Kimball. Before we head into the next section and start answering some of these questions, I wanted to just ask one more question. We've just heard about some of the challenges that that people have had. I think I'm missing a poll here. I apologize. It should be here, but it's not. I'm just going to move on. So we essentially want you to be thinking about the problems you've had, some of the challenges you've had as we talk to these, and be ready with questions. You can feel free to have those questions. All right, so April, Kimball.
Yeah, so as Kimball said, we had our Learn Chef platform for a couple years, and we knew that we had a really great resource for our community and for our developers to learn and increase their DevOps skill set, but we weren't able to really leverage the complete value of our training platform for a couple of reasons. And Harry, if you go to the next slide, we had a couple marketing reasons and a couple content challenges that were really keeping us from getting the full value of what we wanted to. So from a marketing standpoint, tracking was very unreliable. Part of it had to do with we weren't requiring users to sign in. So almost all of our tracking was based on website visits. So users would sometimes sign in, but they wouldn't complete a course. They'd complete a course, but it wouldn't be in their account. Sometimes cookies get cleared. We just weren't getting a really clear view of who exactly is coming to the site each time, making sure they didn't have any duplicate accounts. We had trouble getting a really strong monthly active user count, which was our main metric that we were tracking on. It was impacting our course progress data, our badge awards. So we could never really trust the data, and we couldn't really tell how anything was performing from a course standpoint or a campaign standpoint. And as a lot of decision makers within the marketing org, if you don't have the data to back it up, it's really hard to get money to actually promote something. So that can be kind of a roadblock. Another thing was that the platform backend was relatively unsupported, and I think Kimball can talk a little bit more to it in a bit, but it just was a really old tool. We didn't have the resources to really manage it in the right way, and it was just not set up for success in that side. We would have integration issues, and it was just really hard to do any kind of error resolution. A lot of duplicates were coming into our system. It just wasn't as clean as possible, and that also impacted the tracking as well. And then the final marketing challenge was just the content creation and updating was a little bit challenging from also those same platform constraints. Our content didn't necessarily align with the marketing themes that we had in market. So if we wanted to spin something up really quickly for a campaign that we were running, we didn't have that seamless, here's the Learn Chef content that we could really support that program with. And it just was invaluable to change that and to get something that we could really robustly market to. We do a lot of events, we do a lot of promotional campaigns. I know last December we did a big one about giving away swag for course completions, but we couldn't exactly get the right course completions delineated per person. So like we want to be able to have a lot of marketing, exciting touch points around Learn Chef, and that just wasn't really doable in the current platform, and just content in general. And so I'll let Kimball talk more about some of the challenges that he's faced as the training team.
Yeah, go back to the previous slide, please, Harry. Yeah, so we've got, like, obviously, like we talked about this, like content challenges. It was a very complex environment for labs, and as I said in that mission statement earlier, it's really important for us to have this easy environment. We want people to be able to have as low touch, like it's simple access to this training much as possible, because we don't want people to like find that they're not going to just try it because it's just too complex to set up the environment. So that was a really big problem for it, which I'll cover in a little bit. And then like the content was very hard for us to update. The way that the content system was built made it difficult for us to update. It meant that we were very limited on who could actually produce any updates. Although the whole platform was in a Git repository, it wasn't actually, we could never even consider opening it up as open source because it was just too difficult for anybody else to be able to contribute to. And because the platform was essentially a web page, it wasn't a learning environment. We didn't have course outlines. We weren't able to create these for people to know what they were going to be learning. It was just a whole bunch of material. And also it often looked like we had way more content than we really did, because every module that was in a track was repeated for every single track it was in. So you'd go onto the thing to try and figure out what you wanted to learn, and there was like 5 times as much stuff listed as was really there, which just presented a complexity challenge for the user. So if you go to the next slide, and I'll explain a little bit about this complex environment. And you can see here, this is one taken straight out of one of our environments, where if you were wanting to follow a lab, first you had to choose which server you were on, and then which environment that was running on. So like Red Hat running on Amazon Web Services, or Windows Server running on Azure, which was a huge amount of complexity for the user. It seemed great. They were choosing where they were working on. But from the point of view as the developers of the training material, we essentially had 20 different versions of the same content. And we had some automated processes around managing those differences in theory, but in practicality, that relied on a very fragile testing system that hadn't worked for 18 months at the point that we were doing it. So if we wanted to make a change to, say, the version of Chef that we were working with, we had to change that in multiple different places and then test it manually in multiple different ways. And so that was really difficult for us. And then if the next slide, we talk about the update process. The whole system was built from these combination of Markdown and ERB, Ruby templates. And it would take 20 minutes plus to build this, both on for producing production, or in locally, we would have a build environment that would in theory run kind of real time on your laptop, but wasn't really reliable. It was using massively old versions of software because we couldn't update it, because it was a custom software. And one thing recently, a typo was found on the course pages for one of our courses, and it took me 5 minutes total to fix 2 typos, which would actually were 2 typos. One was found and then the other was found. If that had been on the old system, it would have taken an hour to fix each one, because it would have to go 20-minute build process for acceptance, checking it on acceptance, another 20 minutes build process. In fact, it was more than 20-minute build process for releasing production. It was very difficult. And then adding new courses, and this was a problem both for us as the content developers. It was a lot of busy work in duplicating bits, making sure that we had the new track created, the modules, updating indexes manually. And then also from April's point of view, from the marketing, if we added a new course, there was no integration at all to the rest of the systems. It was very, very difficult for us. And so we needed something new. And we needed something that was going to allow us to be able to just focus on building the content. So the next slide. And so we went on to using the platform with Appsumbler. And when I was doing the evaluation for this, I spent about 6 months evaluating lots and lots of different products. And there was a couple of things like that I was really caring about. One, I wanted to have something that people could just update the content and to get all things like an outline for the course just to happen automatically. And the other thing that was really important for me was improving that access to the labs. And the platform, the Appsumbler Virtual Labs platform, really struck out as something that was going to make life so much better, because instead of having this multiple combination of different environments that people were accessing, I think it's on the next slide, you could just click a button to launch the lab, and now this is a single lab environment that we have total control over, that is accessible through a browser. So anybody that's got restricted permissions on their work laptops, that they can't install software, they don't have to worry, it's all just through the browser. And being this controlled environment means that we're able to just write the course for one place and it will just work. And then obviously when people are at the stage of working through it on their own laptops, we have documentation and we're able to help people out and help them with their own specific environment. But when people are learning, they need to have something that's just going to work. It's just going to work first time. And that's really, really important to us. And the other thing was that we wanted this content to be easy to update. Now, we now have this platform that is, it's a proper learning management system. We directly updating it means the changes happen really, really fast. It's a WYSIWYG interface. It's like what you see is what you get. This means that if we want to onboard an author, we just need to teach them how to write good technical content. We don't need to teach them how to install a build process that was a massive undertaking, using versions of Ruby that will have been out of date for 2 years, and it just works. That's the thing for us. It just works. And then H5P, which is a wonderful platform that allows you to build a combination of dynamic learners. You've got all sorts of really interesting quizzing options where dragging and dropping multiple choice options. A lot of it is very focused at school level things, but the tools that it produces are really good for all levels of learning. And one of the key things in producing technical learning material is that you need to make sure that it's not going to lose the interest of people that have different learning styles. And so we can have videos which will have have content that you interrupts and ask you questions within the video. We can have these different quizzing options, and alongside that with all the lab environments means it's an extremely dynamic learning experience for people, and it just generally makes things a lot better. And April's going to go into a lot of what we've done in the marketing situations and the tracking, but one of the things that I really want to make that's really important is that the ability for us to track the user's progress is not just so that we can produce marketing material, but it's so that we are able to produce the content that is going to be most used, that we're able to tailor that content to people, and it just makes life a lot easier. So April, I'll pass over to you and you can talk about what we've done in
Definitely. Yes, I think one of the things I was really focused on with the Appsumbler team was making sure we did have a really strong reporting infrastructure so that we could not only help Kimball's team, but help the marketing team and eventually help the sales team as well. And so I think that started with our improved user tracking through single sign-on and through a required sign-in process. As I mentioned, our previous one didn't have required sign-in, so you could complete a course and it wouldn't track to your account. And that would create a lot of user issues. I know initially we weren't requiring that in our requirements gathering for this new tool, but it turned out that we did use it, and I am so excited that we don't have any confusion about who is signed in or not, because you have to be signed in. There's no confusion if you completed something and it's not showing on your account. It gives us a really accurate view of our unique users, and we can track to our main metric, which is monthly active users. we ended up going with an Auth0 sign-on platform. So you can do a single sign-on option, or you can just create an account. This was to create a really low barrier for entry, as Kimball had in his mission statement, as well as using single sign-on as something that we've been looking forward to at Chef to hopefully build out one day into a larger like Chef login system. So this was kind of our first step into that direction of getting one single account, and instead of having different logins for portals and products, hopefully we can kind of merge this all around one. You can go to the next slide, please. So we built out a robust tracking infrastructure in our marketing database, which pushes over to our sales enablement database as well. So in our marketing database, we're tracking signups, we're tracking course starts and completions, we're tracking section starts and completions, and sections are a little bit deeper than what we get in the reporting from Appsumbler out of the box. And so it's something that we can kind of deep dive into what we're looking for and how the course is being completed, where people are getting stuck, just kind of helping that content path and understanding that user journey. We're also getting badge awards. So in Marketo, I built out an infrastructure that is putting together automated flows based on engagement or potentially lack thereof. So on the right, you can kind of see my basic hierarchy per course. It's talking through automated flows, it's building lists out, there are emails associated with things. So we're able to pull together onboarding email campaigns and targeting. So like we have a welcome email, we're working on how-to emails, making sure that the user journey is, again, that low barrier of entry to get started and understand what's going on. We also have, if there's a course completion, they'll get an email, they'll be tagged a certain way. They might go to sales if they're in the right bucket of like status or company. And so we're able to just get a better user journey experience with the help of our marketing automation tools. We're also able to tag out different pieces of content and how they're actually related to our products, if they're related to certain marketing themes. Since everything is in our centralized marketing database, we're able to connect all of our Learn Chef details with all of our user preferences, the demographic information that we have of them, all of their firmographic information. So we're able to kind of make that connection with, you know, we're only asking a couple pieces of information about you, of like your first name, last name, company, and email, and we're able to connect that into our larger database to give you a better experience, to give our sales team more information, to give our content team more information about who is using the platform. And that's also helping us enable campaigns. So if we want to do a new course launch, we're able to target the right people to get that information. If it's a new compliance course, we can pull all the people that have done compliance courses or haven't done compliance courses or have interest in compliance. And we can identify the best audiences for all of our marketing output and, you know, really understanding the user better. And if you go to the next slide, you can, I put together a Salesforce Dashboard, and so we're able to easily identify what's going into the system and how we can visualize it. So looking at new users over time, users by company, region, company size, course and section start and completion rates over time, the percent of inactive users by course and section. So like seeing where people are getting stuck and how we can push them through the cycle, course activity by theme, and then total badge awards. And so we're taking all of that data, being able to visualize it in a platform that more than just the Learn Chef team is seeing. So like sales can see it, marketing can see it, and just really being able to identify areas where we can be improving or having really great successes. So like if we look at our users over time, we had a huge spike at launch, which is pretty typical. Now we're kind of tapering off. And so it's like, what do we need to be doing to increase new user signups? Whereas maybe our MAUs are actively increasing over time, we need to work on our signups. So it's being able to visualize that kind of deep engagement information and populate it to the team so we can approach it from a marketing standpoint and then approaching from a training standpoint and a content perspective. And then next slide. And just how we're using the data. Again, we're creating personas and being able to enable marketing a little bit better. Plugging into our full database has given us a good picture of like who's using the platform, who we want to be using the platform. Our sales team can see if their companies are active in that. Campaign targeting, making sure that we're getting information out to the right audiences, and then just reporting in general, being able to align some of our marketing activities, like how we're going to build events, how we're going to define promotions based on what content's actually working, and where in the tool we can be supplementing. So we have a couple of financial services events coming up, I think later this month, and we are able to specifically pull out some of the courses in Learn Chef to be able to supplement the content in those virtual training classes to continue people's learning journey beyond our virtual engagement there. And then understanding the user journey, definitely helping Kimball's team to create more content, the right content, seeing where people are getting stuck, looking at popular courses and themes, tracking inactivity monitoring. We're working on rolling out a nudge program, so if someone's not engaging in the course anymore, we can make sure that they're actually finishing it. And then we're also getting a lot of information from that progression in Learn Chef to understand how we can be tweaking our sales process, and like if a bunch of people at a certain company are engaging in Learn Chef content, is that something where our sales team should be reaching out and starting a conversation with them because we know that they're interested, or they might be a new customer that is onboarding a bunch of people. We want to make sure that they're checking in and making sure that the company is as a whole using our products in the right way. And then I think the biggest thing is having those shareable reports in a company standard reporting depot, which is Salesforce for us. We're able to get the information out to our sales team with self-serve custom reports and shared dashboards so they can monitor their individual accounts. We're also able to look at the Learn Chef campaigns and see how they're performing in comparison to all of our other marketing promotions. So how are opportunities influenced by Learn Chef? How is the sales cycle impacted if Learn Chef is involved in a sales touch point? And then seeing how Learn Chef is comparing to, say, as a lead source, how is that working based off of product downloads or compared to white paper downloads? So seeing kind of that holistic picture of how Learn Chef is populating into our marketing lifecycle has been really interesting. And so that's most of the benefits that I'm seeing right now. And with our new infrastructure, I'm super excited to see more data every day and just seeing how we can tailor it. We are loving our investment in Learn Chef and refreshing with Appsumbler. Kimball, do you have anything else? Otherwise, we can turn it back to Harry.
No, I think we've covered a lot of stuff there. And again, it's like you're showing there the badging stuff, and that's like all the stuff that's helping us to grow. And it's just made life much easier for us, and we're able to now focus on the content rather than the complexity of the platform.
Thanks, April. Thanks, Kimball. Nate, I know you probably have some follow-up questions, and give the audience a chance to ask any questions they've got. So reminder, folks, if you have questions, you can use that Q&A icon in your interface. Nate, if you want to start with your questions, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. And thanks, Kimball and April, for sharing all those insights. That was great. So I'll kick off with an easy question. How large of a team do you have managing Learn Chef today?
We have a total of 4 of us in the developer advocacy team. We're 3 developer advocates and 1 instructional designer, and we are doing a lot more than just Learn Chef.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys have a lot on your plates.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. And how do you promote the success of Learn Chef internally? Like, I know it's been running for 3 years.
One of the things that's really key about Learn Chef is that it pervades across a lot of the things we do. So we use Learn Chef, obviously the public facing thing that you see. Learn Chef is like this big platform that we have all this training on. But we also have Learn Chef set up for internal sales enablement training. So any new starters in the sales team, there's a course that's been created on Learn Chef for them to work through, so people are aware of it from that side of things. And the customer success team heavily push Learn Chef for any of their new onboarding customers as well. And so there's a lot of knowledge internally about Learn Chef from that. Now, one of the things that we've been starting to do, and now we've got this much better platform, is we've created a course on authoring content, which we're sharing around, and so people are able to know more about it internally because they're able to produce content for it. And that's been a really big, important step for us. And so really, like, it's known because everybody knows it, because everybody uses it, because, you know, into both internal onboarding and customer onboarding, and now the ability for people to create their own content to share with customers as well.
Yeah, you talked a lot about how with your old system, there was a lot of manual processes. Every time you wanted to make a change to the content, you had to rerun the build. How has having a web-based authoring tool streamlined that, simplified it, I guess democratized the authoring opportunities for people at Chef,
Yeah,
and external as well?
So yeah, it's been wonderful. Like, it's just the ability for people and the collaboration, even just within the team, that was very hard for us to do before with collaborating on the same content, because of that you'd have to work through the Git process, and it wasn't always really obvious. Now everybody can work on the same content all at once very easily. One of the things that we've been looking at doing for a long time is both internal labor for our engineers to be able to produce courses if they want to, and the customer success and sales teams have very much wanted to produce courses. But as people know, all of our Chef products are open source, and whilst we produce builds that we sell to our customers and what have you, there is also a community building, another set of builds, and they have expressed interest in wanting to be able to produce content as well, partly just for the helping them understand stuff, but the ability for us to be able to say to people, yeah, we can give you access to be able to create your own course, which we'll make available to us, and we'll share that out. And that's going to be really important to us. Now, there's limitations on the platform that don't give us to absolute perfection, but it is something that is available to us. And so that's been really good. And as part of all this process as well, we've realized that having all the course content on our products is really useful, but our products are using, you know, that people need to understand Ruby to an extent, or if they're working with Habitat, they need to understand Rust. And so we are getting external content provider to produce content for us that allows us to have tangential core content. And we never would have been able to consider this with the old platform because it was so hard to onboard people on creating content. Whereas now it's so much easier. We're able to just say, yeah, we can get this content in, and we can put it online for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so there may be people on the call or people who listen to the recording later who are wondering, you know, we don't have an education team, we don't have an online learning offering. So I'm curious if you can take us back in time. You know, I know Learn Chef has been around for 3 years. What was the impetus? You know, who at Chef kind of lobbied for this, and how did Learn Chef get its start?
So the very early stages of what we had in terms of training and documentation is that early, and we're talking kind of 10 years ago now, we used to have a wiki. The documentation was on the wiki, and people would put content on the wiki. And that was difficult, to say the least, for people. This was before I even started working for Chef, but I've been a user of Chef for a very long time. And so the company decided to transition to a formal documentation site, which helped keep track of versioning of different versions of software, and so made sure the content was always up to date for the right version. But that then left a void for training. So the first thing that was produced was a set of openly available training, which was a 3-day training course, which was insane. It was difficult. It was, and to be honest, this 3-day training course was kind of a 5 or 6 day training course if you actually covered it at a sensible pace. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't working. So essentially, Nathan Harvey, who was the big well-known advocate of Chef, decided that we needed some online training content, and basically he started writing it. And then it got kind of formalized, and as I say, 3 years ago, the Learn Chef Rally was launched, which was our online training platform. So it kind of grew organically from people that were just trying to use Chef, trying to talk about Chef, trying to help people with Chef. And honestly, I think any company can do that. It's not a difficult thing to just start writing things down.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love to hear, what are the top positive impacts that Learn Chef has had on the business? Like, what do you think are the most valuable contributions?
Well, I mean, I work for Chef as a result of being able to learn through the various online, like various platforms in the community that's built, and Learn Chef is a big part of that, building that community. Community for developers is a hard thing to maintain, especially when it's software that's not quite traditional development. Like, it's not like using an API where you can build a product using an API, something like Twilio. It's more complicated than that, in the sense it's automating other software, it's automating infrastructure. So building a developer community can be a challenging thing, but making things as easy as possible for people to learn helps build that community. And as I say, we have both us as the company providing Chef, and then there is the other distributions that have been made available for building out, and that's a whole separate community of people. And on top of that, we also have the sous chef community, which is people that maintain the cookbooks that allow you to use the chef cookbooks, and that's another whole community of people. And so the Learn Chef is this kind of joining force to sort of give everybody the ability to learn, and as they eventually contribute to as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to dig in. Oh, go ahead, April.
Oh, go ahead. I think the free nature of it is also really compelling to a lot of people. I know, and in the COVID time, a lot of people might have lost their jobs, and they're looking for that training to get that next step up. And I think having that resource in Learn Chef, like, people can just come and say, oh, here's my personal email, and like, I just want to create this platform for any individual using it, not just our customers, not just people that have tons of experience already, but just getting everybody in the platform to make sure that they can use it. So for everybody, it's free. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I'd love to dig more into the developer community aspect too. What role does education play in building awareness about Chef among a developer audience or practitioners?
Well, I mean, and April can talk more to this, but obviously selling a product like Chef to people is a tough sell. Like, it's really complicated. People don't necessarily understand, like, from a business level, like, what the purposes of all the automation and stuff is. And often people feel scared by that word automation. But by having this free online training, we're able to get the practitioners to find software that's making their life easier. It's not automating themselves out of a job. It's automating the boring parts and allowing them to get on with the interesting parts. And then by having that groundswell within an organization, it then becomes much easier for a business that is trying to do a DevOps transformation to say, well, look, this is working. We can see it's working, and therefore look to actually make purchases and what have you. And so, and April, I'm sure you can talk more to that in terms of the way that the lead generation works.
Definitely. I think the groundswell of the developers bubbling up into that business financial decision maker is huge for us, because if they're not going to necessarily understand the nitty gritty of why someone's job is taking a long time, or why they don't understand why something's working right. Getting that full picture of everyone can learn something, and it's not going to cost you more money to train everybody up. Like, it's these platform that we already have, it's ready to go. You can already take a look at it before you buy it. I think it's really helpful to convince that executive buyer of saying, everyone at our organization is already on board. We've seen what it can do. It's almost like a mini trial that, you know, everyone can look at and see what the user interface is, and it just makes that conversation a little bit easier. Or if the sales team needs to say, hey, this is some kind of this is a course that you can go look at to understand the complex problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we can push out really easily.
Yeah. And I mean, and Chef and all of our products, like, they give such power to organizations that they don't even realize. And so a little story
Totally.
from before I was working for Chef, I was working for a company, and we had a relatively acrimonious departure of an employee, and my manager's manager came to me and said, look, like, because I was sysadmin at the time, like, we need you to get rid of all this users accounts as quickly as possible. I understand it's probably going to take a couple of days to go through everything, but let me know. And I was like, just hold on a second. And I typed a couple of commands, adjusted some chef recipes, and pushed it, and said they'll be sorted in an hour. And like, he had no idea, because he'd seen this stuff I'd been doing, and he just thought, well, what are you doing? Why were you wasting your time? But then I was able to prove very quickly how useful this kind of automation software was. And then this is like really the essence of DevOps and what have you. It's breaking down these barriers. It's making things making the boring things easy, consistent, and building up trust that's just so important. And having people learn that in a free manner helps everybody.
Yeah, no, that's very cool when you can have that kind of impact and just kind of automate things that otherwise would be very, very tedious, time consuming. Kimball, you've mentioned in the past, like, tutorials, not trials. And I know how important it is to have trials of your software, but how has Chef found pairing a trial together with instructional content has helped make it easier for people to not just try your software, but really understand the value and how they can use it? Yeah,
so the problem with the trial of software is that usually that involves a bunch of the pre-sales team having to spend a week in with the company doing a proof of concept, which is very expensive for everybody concerned. And often that decision has to be made before anybody has really had any chance to understand anything about the software at all. And like, just the ability to just download trials of the software is great, but without the context, without the ability to explain that in a real world environment or what have you, it's not very helpful. By having the tutorials, with the hands-on tutorials, we're able to build out a fake but real world example of what's going on, and we're able to like teach people how to use the software in a way that they can consume in their own time, but understand it in the context of what they're doing. Now, at the moment, what we have is not as in depth as we'd like. But one of the things that we're going to be producing, particularly around Habitat, which is our application automation, is a series of courses called Habitat in Practice, where we're showing the use of this software in a particular type of software environment to make it really understandable for people, so that, like, okay, I've got this problem I want to solve. This is how I solve it with these software.
Yeah, that's great. April, you spoke about how you're able to track, as people are going through the courses, you can see kind of where they're getting stuck. And also you can identify, whether someone might be a likely candidate to purchase Chef. So how does Learn Chef impact sales at Chef, and sort of how do you use that data, and what sort of indicators do you look for?
Sure, I know the sales team loves it when they get Learn Chef leads. It indicates a deeper interest in the product than I think just like reading a white paper, and maybe you're not quite as ready to actually get started on anything. I think it gives us a really good idea of the swell at a certain company as well. So we have alerts populating to our sales team every time something happens at a certain account. And so that's a really good indicator if there's a lot of Learn Chef usage for them to say, hey, is this a time to reach out? Are they a customer and they need help? Are they coming up with a renewal? Is there a time when we should be reaching out to make sure that they are maybe an open source customer when we need to be pushing our enterprise software at this point? We made a huge switch last year where we went fully open source and we're selling our enterprise packages. And so it's finding those organizations that still need to make that transition over to our enterprise customer list. And I think they use it as a way to just open conversations with people. They can now see what tracks they're using, and they can see what themes and products they're interested in, so they can tailor their messages to what is actually going on. If it's a compliance message, if it's an application automation message, they have that granularity to be able to pinpoint where they should be reaching out. And then on my marketing automation side, I'm able to put together a scoring platform of if they do a certain number of courses, they get a certain score. If they do a certain number of badge completions, I can weight people and how likely they are to be ready for a sales touch point. And so being able to add that into our just general life cycle of how we're pushing things over to sales has been really informative.
Cool. So Kimball, you mentioned briefly badging, and I'd love it for you to talk about skills validation and sort of how you're using the platform to either for certification or for people just validate that they have the necessary chef skills.
Yeah, and so and this is a really important thing, and it's something we're still building out, and so we've not got everything tied down yet. But one of the things that attracted us to the platform you're producing was when we were talking in the procurement stages about badging and what have you. We used to have badges on the old platform, which was just literally just a logo that you got. You couldn't really share it or anything, but by using the Open Badges standard, people can share that information out. But more importantly, the Open Badges standard has this concept of pathways, and those pathways allow us to build out a certification pathway. And we start this, like, if you take a bunch of our courses, you get badges for all those courses, and then once you've got a bunch certain on them, that then allows you to get another badge, which is like the Principles of Chef badge. Now, we've been trialing this with one of our partners, and it's really important for partners to be able to show to their customers that they have the chef skills. And we had a certification process in the past, but it was difficult. It was a proctored exam that you had to have all the right configuration set up, which often didn't work very well, especially if you were in an environment where you didn't have super high-speed internet, which we're talking in the APAC region, like Singapore, India, and what have you. There's often not very good internet connections, so it's very difficult for people to do. Whereas we're able to build out a much more approachable method to this credentialing system, which we'll be announcing more details of that in the next month or so. But yeah, the platform has really enabled us to be able to build this very, very easily, especially when we had this partner that we needed to help very, very quickly. I was able to produce that initial pathway almost instantly, which we would never have been able to do in the past. And we've seeing it's really interesting how many people have been sharing the badges on LinkedIn and various other social media, even Pinterest, which I find a bit strange.
Well, I imagine that also helps to build awareness of chef, right? If people are sharing their badges on their LinkedIn profile, then it spreads, the chef love around to other people who might not otherwise know about it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been really, really good for us.
Great. Well, I think we are almost out of time. I think we'll wrap up the Q&A portion of today, and I'll hand it back to Harry to wrap things up.
Thanks, Nate. And Kimball and April, thank you so much for joining us for this. I know it's a lot of extra work outside of your full-time job, so we really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about Chef, there's some information here about their website, about learn.chef.io. A quick plug, if you want some chef swag, you can click on that link, and we'll send these slides out, so you'll have the link to receive a free chef notebook. Now, I need to caveat that is an analog notebook. It is not a digital notebook. So you're not going to get this shiny new MacBook that has a chef logo on it. You're going to get a, pen and paper kind of notebook. So, equally, if you want to learn more about Appsumbler, Appsumbler.com will always work. We've got another webinar coming up on October 22nd. It's a Thursday at 1 o'clock. It's why you need an education team. We learned a little bit today about the value of that, and we're going to talk with Kyle Banker from Redis Labs about how they've gone about building their education team to help them also drive a lot of leads and do a better job of engaging with community. So with that, I'll say thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.